The webinar I watched is called Making Complex Text Compelling to Middle School Students, presented by Amplify ELA. Amplify is a digital curriculum for grades 6 through 8. Amplify first notes that many middle school students don't read outside of class, finding a median number of 12 minutes a day. Middle school students prefer to watch TV, play video games, log on to social media, or hang out with friends rather than read, much less complex texts. So how is this addressed? Amplify created a curriculum that allows students to work with text visually. Amplify presented their curriculum in this webinar. In summation, they believe that many students think visually and interact with their world in this way, so they want students to approach text in a visual way as well. In this webinar, a few key points were suggested in how to implement these techniques, and I'll go more in depth on those activities. One way Amplify takes a visual approach is with poetry. Poetry has complex language and its form is irregular from that of prose, so a lot of students have difficulty understanding what they read. In this poem by Langston Hughes, you can see how breaking down the poem by line leads to making meaning of the lines through visual and concrete thoughts. This helps engage students through a visual interaction with the text while assisting students with interpretation. Another way to decode complex texts is to help students find patterns and themes. It's not easy for middle school students to identify themes and patterns across a complex text. In Amplify's example, students read a memoir of a girl in China during a cultural revolution, and the teacher wanted students to focus on the theme of hope. So the question students had to answer was, is the girl hopeful or hopeless at various stages throughout the chapter? The student highlights the quote in text, and for each quotation, the student rates the character's feelings of hope on a scale of 1 to 10. Students do this throughout the chapter, and at the end of it all, each point highlighted throughout the chapter is graphed. In effect, students are taking conceptual things and stringing them together to make it vivid. The actual quote from the text is associated with each point on the graph, which emphasizes the skill of finding text evidence. This activity can essentially be a stepping stone for writing about or discussing the pattern of hopefulness because now students simply describe and interpret the visual they just created. Next, students can storyboard as a way to break down complex text and demonstrate an understanding of the passage. Amplify calls this reading like a movie director, and students pretend that they are directing the movie of a scene in the passage. Students drag and drop images into the scenes, and they choose the images according to their evaluation of the passage. Students have to think about whose point of view they want to shoot the scene from, the narrator's perspective, or a different character's point of view. And they also have to assess characters' emotions based on what they read so that they can accurately portray the passage through this visual creation. Furthermore, students can work with text out loud. This includes dramatic readings and student performances. Whether students are watching or performing, the visual and kinesthetic interactions students have with text makes it more compelling. Project Ed is a website, as a part of Amplify, that is all about performing text and explaining concepts out loud via videos. This includes book trailers. They also have a variety of competitions. The website specifies the book to read, and students create and submit videos to compete for cash prizes. Finally, students can go on a quest. This quest is an interactive game that students can play after reading. They play the game from the role of a character, but they read like a detective trying to solve a mystery. In the Amplify example, students are given a detective notebook for gathering up evidence. They write what they know about each of the characters, and then they write an accusation and try to convince the skeptical jury. So this activity really addresses students' understanding of character traits, skills in persuasive writing, and collaboration with peers. All of these approaches promote a more visual and compelling way for middle school students to read and understand complex texts. All of these approaches to reading can be practically applied in English language arts classes. Some are more practical than others, especially since these particular activities are only available through Amplify. However, there are many apps, websites, and 2.0 resources that teachers can use to modify projects based on these ideas that incorporate a visual interaction with dense text. A key point for all of these activities is selecting the right passage to use. Teachers should use a passage with variability so students have to close read but can have an interesting conversation because of a variety of understandings. Students should individually construct meaning through their own interactions with the text. The ultimate goal is to get students interested in reading and engaging them with the text in a visual way to foster learning.